Hello, everyone, and thank you for attending. We're ready to get started with today's Board Docs webinar. This webinar will last 30 minutes and will include time for questions and answers. We encourage you to send your questions into the Q&A box, and we will address those during the webinar. This session will be recorded, and a link to the recording, along with the slides, will be emailed after the webinar. We also ask that you mute your lines to minimize the noise. Today, we're delighted to have Cheryl Dombey, e-governance specialist with Board Docs, with us to lead us in today's webinar. Welcome, Cheryl, and I'm going to turn the webinar over to you.
Well, great. Thank you, Amanda. My name is Cheryl Dombey. I'm the e-governance advisor here at Board Docs. I want to thank you for joining me and spending a little bit of time with me talking about your board documents and the organization of your board documents. A little history on myself. I worked 30 years in public education. The last few years, I was the board's clerk here in the Toledo, Ohio area. And we brought Board Docs into our district in about 2009. It really just changed the way we did business, especially from an administrative side. And that's what I'm going to show you here today. I'm going to talk about the packets and getting the information together. I'm going to talk about how we can organize them in Board Docs and make for an effective board meeting, and also the other items that surround the board meeting and how to organize those things. So I like to talk about, just briefly, about a couple of things. Who is doing the work when you're getting a packet together, when you're getting agenda information together? I kind of categorized them in different categories here. The agenda. So we're creating the information for the board meeting. We have, staff submission. We have a reviewing process. We're organizing a lot of information. And I like to say, at least for the clerk's perspective and maybe a superintendent's perspective, it's like juggling apples and oranges and maybe a steak knife, and let's throw in a fire extinguisher. So you're trying to juggle all these different information and presentations into the board meeting night. So there's a lot of information up front in preparing for a board meeting. Once you get that all together and the versions are correct and the presentations are right, then there is the board packet delivery. Now, once the administration has the packet together for the monthly meetings, how do we get that to board members? I've heard anywhere from, the school bus driver dropping them off to board members' houses, to email, to Google Docs. There's a range of ways we deliver that packet to a board member. So then they can consume the information that they're going to be voting on and working on at that meeting. So then we have the school board meeting itself, of course. And traditionally, people think of Board Docs as a board meeting tool. But what I want to show you today is, yes, that's correct, but it is also an administrative collaboration tool. So for your administration, putting the packets together, getting the packet delivered to the board members, having the meeting, doing the minutes, the certifications, your auditable records, you can all do in a very easy and organized way here in Board Docs. And then, of course, organizing those records. So when I look at all these different categories of just a monthly board meeting, most of the time administration is doing this work. Administration is responsible for getting the agenda together, delivering the packet, also running the board meeting itself and taking care of the public speakers and the how the public consumes the information during the board meeting. Presentations, maybe you have some school groups coming in to lead the pledge. So there's different aspects in the meeting itself. Then afterwards, getting the agendas together as far as the minutes, the voting, maybe adding that presentation into the minutes so that the community can go back in and see that. There's also certification. So, you're going to have a lot of documents that need to be signed, and in each state it's different. In Ohio here, we have the treasurer's certificate for each meeting. We have physically signed minutes document that needs to be held for the auditors to review. And so there's an appropriation measure that needs to be signed. So there's physically still some paper documents that need to have an organization for later review. And then, of course, your historical records and your public records requests. So when I looked at all those items, I kind of put a percentage to the time, if you would consider 100% of the packet being done in a month. I think, and I've checked this with other administrations, about 60% of the time, or the majority of time, is spent up front creating those agenda items and budgets and presentations and getting that together for the consumption of the board before the meeting. And then, of course, getting the packet to the board meeting itself, the minutes, and the archiving the records. So when you're looking at time, I want you to think of board docs as more of an administrative collaboration tool. I'm going to show you now our software itself and how those things are accomplished. So when you come into Board Docs, you will have your own Board Docs site, very easily searchable by your community, board members. We really try to keep it simple and not overcomplicate things. Whatever you have highlighted across the top here is where you're at. So you know right now that you're on your feature page. You have some upcoming meetings here that you might want to highlight to your community. Policies that might be under review. Of course, board's goals, very important and easily trackable in Board Docs. Let's go into your Meetings tab. Now you see all your meetings here along the side and your archived history down the side, very easily searchable by term. And this is easily searchable by your community and by your board members. So although you might have board members that say, I don't want to use an electronic system for our board meeting, they will use Board Docs for searching and archiving, searching your archived records. So let me give you an example here. Say your board member, you have a board meeting. You can view the agenda. You can still print the agenda. Like I said, many board members still want a printed agenda at their meetings, and that's okay. That's a preference, I feel. So it's kind of reading a book or holding a Kindle, but they will use Board Docs in other ways. So again, you view the agenda, print the agenda. Once the minutes are done, they'll be able to view the minutes on this tab. Video, if you have video that you use for your meetings, you can add your video and index it by item. And this would be your meeting control panel once the meeting starts. So let's get into view the agenda. Now the agenda tab is highlighted up here, and your information is along the side here. So it's an index of your agenda items. If you're in a particular agenda item here, so let's say we're going to hire a teacher. As we go in and create this agenda item, you can do this many ways. You are creating the agenda item. It can be a public or private item. Most items, of course, are public, but you can mark it private if it's maybe an executive session agenda item or it's something that you want to keep private. So let's say it's a public item. It's an action item. The board's going to vote on that. But it could also be a presentation that the board is getting that night, or it might be a report. You can have different types of agenda items in here, and you can tag them as such. So let's say it's an action item. In here as well, we can go in and add a board's goal to this particular agenda item. So we can say this agenda item relates to building a sense of community in each school, or you create your own goals in here. So it's as easy as saying that it pertains to a goal that the board has set. You can add more than one goal as well. You can go down and say, you know, a preferred date you would like this approved, or an absolute date. You don't have to use these categories. They're here just if you would like to use them. Is it going to be a fiscal impact to the district? Board members like to know that when they're voting on items. So if you say, you know, yes or no, you can show that to your board. You can also show them how much this particular agenda item is going to impact the district. Is it a budgeted item? Is there a particular budget source that we're using? So now that they know it's a Title I budget and not maybe out of the general fund budget. So this is all information that you can give your board very easily in each agenda item. Here's where we add the content to this agenda item. So notice here that we're adding to the public content areas, and this is what the public will see. The public will see that we're hiring Jason Smith for 3rd grade. And you can make tables in here, you can add photos, you can do lots of different things in this rich text editor. You can also add a PDF in here. So when you're creating this agenda item, you can see in here what the public is going to see. But based on sign-ons that the district provides, you can have a deeper level for administrative content. So say the superintendent would like to, and every human resource hire, have a resume attached to that agenda item, have a background check in here. Now we're adding information for people in the district that has passwords and that can come in and see a deeper level here to this one agenda item. And now a 3rd level of content where board members have access. And you might put any executive session information here, but the board members might want to see a contract or a salary schedule for this particular hire. Now you have all the information in one place, easily searchable. 5 years from now, when Jason Smith is the Teacher of the Year, a board member can say, I wonder if I was on the board when Jason was hired. They can come in and search that and see all that information in here, 5 years down the road. So it's an easy organizational tool for your different levels of content. Also, once a vote is taken, the vote shows up in this item as well. So you can see what board approved this item. And so if you were interested in seeing if you were on the board when this person was hired, it would be in here as well. That is how you would create an agenda item and all the information that you can include. You can also, I know in some districts, the board might just call the clerk and say, hey, Jason Smith, when was he hired, and can you send me that information? Well, if a clerk goes in here and searches, she can use this easy share button and just send the board member an email, which will include the link to this agenda item. And when the board member gets that, they can be directed right to this particular agenda item. So now you're organizing all your information very easily from creation. You can also have different departments submit agenda items. So they can have specific security to create an agenda item. Let's say it's human resources. So the clerk necessarily doesn't want to get all the information herself. She wants to have people submit the agenda items. So they can go in and they can have specific security to just submit agenda items, not necessarily create a whole agenda, but just an item. So they would go in and select which draft agenda is out there that they want to submit to, under what category that they want it to show up. And let's say they're hiring a new teacher. Very similar to what we talked about, adding the information in here and then submitting the agenda item to this agenda. So that is some of the easy ways to create your information. And then as they come in, the clerk will be able to see those items in here. If an item comes in and maybe she wants this teacher up front, we can change items around. Everything renumbers. We can put that more towards the back end. Everything renumbers. And you can even change whole categories if you'd like. So any last minute changes to an agenda are real easy to do in here. I know people that have PDFs and, once they get that PDF together, it's real hard to make any changes. That's not the case here in Board Docs. Let me show you a little bit too how when you connect a goal to a particular agenda item, how that shows up. So as an administrative team, you are trying to gather the information to make the board successful in the goals that they set forth in the year. So let's say staff training was one of those items that the board really wanted the administration to focus on. So when you connect that goal to an agenda item, it starts populating a progress report here in that particular goal. So you can see how many times a particular agenda item was put forth for the board to look at, whether it's an action item or even a presentation. It's a real easy way to organize your information. And if there's a vote taken, you would be able to see that as well. What I recommend is in the public content, I like to show, the goal itself. And, it's a traditional goal. These are the things we would like to work on. In that deeper level of security in the administrative content, I like to suggest that people set up a matrix and a timeline for that success throughout the year so that you can go back and check to see in June, where are we? What did we say we were going to do? Are we there yet? And in the executive content area, of course, you can put different items that might pertain to the evaluation of a particular goal or the review of a particular goal. So when people sign in from the administration, if it's an HR goal, they're going to know where we're at and what we have to do to make that goal successful. So again, great way to organize very simply and tag the items for that you're creating in an agenda and how that pertains to the goals of the board. Another way then, so as we create the agenda, we deliver that packet to the board members in here because we make meetings in draft, and so the administrative creates draft agendas and they work on those until they're ready to go public to the board. So when they're ready, you simply right click and make active. Now the board member can see that particular meeting. Doesn't necessarily mean that the public can see that. It just means the board can see that agenda. So in our district, we would have Tuesday board meetings. On Friday, we would make our agendas active. And the board knew that on Friday afternoon, 2 o'clock, they could go in and look and see what was going to be on their agendas for the Tuesday meeting. Now, we don't necessarily always want the public to see right away because there might be some feedback from board members. So in Board Docs, there's a real easy way to set particular agendas, and you can have a public release one day before the meeting. So if you had a Tuesday meeting and you had this set for one day before the meeting, the public would see it on Monday. although you activated it for the board to view on Friday. So they would have the whole weekend to review the documents, ask questions at that time. So the night of the meeting would come, and you would come into your meeting, board members fully reviewed on the information that they have. They might have their printed agenda in hand, and they, like I said, they can do that here. They can print a simple agenda when they click this. So you could have a simple agenda, or you could also have a detailed agenda, something with all the information pertaining to that agenda item. So you can go ahead and either print those, or the board members can print those from home. So the night of the meeting, we're going to launch the meeting control panel. And as we do this, we are going to go through the agenda items and take the votes and different things like that. Start creating the minutes for that meeting. So let's start the meeting. Of course, these would be your board members. If somebody is not present, we go ahead and say that they're not present. When you get into a particular item that has action, you can go in here. You can add who moved, who seconded. You can take your vote. Now, you can take your vote two different ways. You can take a verbal vote, and the clerk can manually put in the vote, or you can open it to online voting, and the board members can vote from their devices. So that's two different ways to do your voting in board docs. In Ohio, we did a manual vote, and then we would save. Now, if there's additional discussion around this item, you can add discussion in here. You can also go, and this is just one particular agenda item, add comments in here in a summary. And if you are looking for the actual content of the agenda item, it's in here. So you would roll through your meeting like normal. Now let's say we're on this particular agenda item, and a board member came in a little bit late. You can go take the roll again and add Betty back into the meeting. And now when you go in to take that vote, Betty will appear in that meeting, and you'll know when she joined the meeting. So it will take attendance, and it will document that inside the meeting. So let's stop that particular meeting. The next day, hopefully we get home at a decent hour. It's not after midnight. We're getting in the next day thinking, now I'm going to do my minutes. Now, we're going to go in and edit the minutes button. We're going to pull in the minutes from the meeting control panel of the night before. And here you have all your information on that meeting: who moved, who seconded, the vote, the agenda topics. Now it's just a formatting tool. So you can see from creation into the meeting itself, and now into the minutes of the meeting, we're using the same information. We're not cutting and pasting. We are using the technology to move all the documents from creation into your minutes in a very easy manner. Now, what I used to do is I used to put draft up here right away, because as we know, the minutes are not the minutes until the board approves it, and we would save. The community cannot see the minutes yet because they're not released yet to the community. In the next board meeting, we're going to try to pull those minutes in for approval. So you would go to new agenda items, and when you find that new agenda item here, you can go in and say, we are going to add a new agenda item, and we're going to add those minutes for the board's approval that night. So we will go in here, and when you see the type and you see the minutes feature right there, you'll click minutes. Now it's going to ask you which minutes do you want to pull into this meeting. You're not cutting and pasting. You're just selecting the date of the meeting where your draft minutes sit, And now when the board gets to this agenda item in the next meeting, they can click on here. Now they can see the minutes that you've prepared. So again, you're not recreating things over and over and over again. You're pulling them from creation to your minutes process all in one area and very easily throughout beginning to end. So after the board does vote on this, then those minutes in here, when you're in your meeting, you'll be able to go in and release those minutes. And now your public will be able to see that they are approved minutes. So your community would come in and they would see view the agenda, print the agenda, and view the minutes to that particular meeting. Okay, let me check my time here. So we're running a little close on time. I also wanted to show you with the tagging of those strategic goals that you can do here. You can do it in the traditional way that you would set forth a strategic goal for a board and for the administration, but you can also use this feature to tag certain items. So if you wanted to have a purchasing department drawer, let's just say I like to call these file drawers, of every time a bid or contract for goods or services came through and was approved by the board, you can have like items that are in these progress reports. So you can use it in an untraditional way to group like items together. So for your bids and contracts, maybe you're tracking a particular grant. And when the board votes on those things, you might want to just keep them in a little compartment file drawer so you can open and see a progress report. A lot of superintendents use this for their goals. So they may want to tag items in agendas. So at the end of the year, they have a nice reporting tool to take to their evaluation. These can be also marked private. They don't have to be public accessible. You can just use these again for file drawers of information that are alike and that you want to gather together. Another way that board members use board docs. So that's kind of how to organize all your information in a very simple manner. But I do like to show this feature, and I'm going to kind of end with this feature of the global search on your site of board docs. So you can go in here and let's say you want to search your particular site for something. And you can do that in here. You can also just search for maybe your policies. And you want to search for your policies of a particular item. So let's say bed bugs. We're searching now through our policies. We don't have a bed bugs policy. But we might want to search our 3,000 subscribers in board docs and see what they're doing on a bed bugs topic. So you can go in and search different policy topics to see what other districts are doing for items that you may be just coming across the first time. So you can go in and do research as a board member and save those legal fees of your legal team doing that. And you can do that as a district. Another way to use this is if you're buying goods and services. So you can come in and search maybe a software that you're buying for your students or maybe certain computers and see what other districts are paying for this particular product. So now you have a nice negotiating tool to see what other districts are paying for when you're purchasing different items. That's a great feature to have. Amanda, are you still with us? It doesn't sound like she is. So I wanted to thank everybody for your time here with us today. If you have any questions, I'm happy to do a follow-up demonstration with anybody one-on-one, or I can also, we are also going to send this link out to people. And I thank you for your time today, and please let me know if you have any questions. Thank you, everybody, and have a great day.